Is it a bird? No. Is it a plane? No. It's Tariff Man! Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Tariff Man can do everything. He is better than Captain America and Superman combined. Okay, well, I'll get out of character. If you're not familiar with what I just did, that's very similar to the opening from the 1930s and 40s Superman TV show for little kids. So I thought it was appropriate along with the economic cartoon, which I've been saving. Finally, Trump. And this is something that myself and Kyle Bass were predicting for the last couple months. After over 8 to 12 months of President Trump, of Larry Kudlow, of many of his lackeys, saying whenever the U.S. stock markets were open Monday through Friday, lying about how there was progress on the China trade deal, President Trump unleashed 3 or 4 tweets today. Let me read them really quick. So stock futures plummet. This is a story by Javier David released today from Yahoo Finance. Stock futures plummet as Trump threatens to hike tariffs on China. So Trump says for 10 months, China has been paying tariffs to the USA of 25% on $50 billion of high tech and 10% on $200 billion of other goods. These payments are partially responsible for our great economic results. The 10% will go up to 25% on Friday, $325 billion. Okay, let me switch to his next couple tweets. For 10 months, okay, next week. Of additional goods sent to us by China remain untaxed. They accidentally put the same tweet twice here in this Yahoo Finance ad. Apparently the editor is lax and not doing a good job. Untaxed, but will be shortly at a rate of 25%. So the goods are going from 10% to 25%. The tariffs paid to the USA have had little impact on product costs, mostly borne by China. The trade deal with China continues, but too slowly as they attempt to renegotiate. No. So basically China has been calling Trump's bluff for many months now, where Trump needed a win. Trump was lying to the American people in order to try to get the stock market from crashing, saying how there was progress on the China deal. There can't be progress every single day for 8 to 12 months on a China trade deal and, no deal gets done. From what I heard, that was all lies. So hopefully you like my little introduction there. If you're familiar, one of my listeners who argues with me and wrote 12 posts or some ridiculous amount. He doesn't know any Austrian school economics. He should learn financial history better. I'm going to attach articles for you guys. I suggest you study up on the history of tariffs because tariffs start to escalate. Okay, there's an article here from the Foundation for Economic Education, and I'll attach a link to it in the information section, called Trade Wars Lead to Shooting Wars and Depressions. Trade wars were a principal factor in causing the Great Depression of the 1930s and World War II. This article was written about a year ago. This other article from 2014 is American Tariffs and Wars from the Revolution to the Depression. There's another article about Frederick Bastiat, and he had a quote, but there's been other economists that also said this before Bastiat, and if goods don't cross the borders, then armies will. So basically, this has been going on throughout history because of mercantilism, where one country tries to cheat on trade or puts tariffs on imports to help their own production, and then things get bad. If you're not familiar, Smoot-Hawley caused immense damage to the U.S. economy. It also caused immense damage to a lot of other countries because it put very high tariffs on imported goods. So there's books out about that contain Smoot-Hawley. I highly suggest, if you want to do more in-depth research on this and not just say, Jason, you're wrong, tariffs don't cause any wars. If you want to actually do the research, I suggest reading Murray Rothbard's book called Great Depression, which is excellent, and he cites dozens of other books and sources, and that's available on audiobook. And another one is Forgotten Man by Amity Shlaes. And that goes into detail as well about the Great Depression and how there was wage and price controls. FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who many Democrats consider the greatest president ever, who a lot of these generalist history books, they say the best things about him. They don't say any criticisms about his Japanese internment camps or other things. FDR actually tried to throw in prison businessmen, American entrepreneurs and small business owners for trying to lower their prices when he had wage and price controls. So his little Keynesian eggheads and other idiots that were tinkering and running things, first of all, Herbert Hoover, President Herbert Hoover, which is another comparison to Trump. Trump historically is looking a lot like Herbert Hoover or President Richard Nixon, but Herbert Hoover was not free market. He was a big interventionist. Even though he was a successful businessman, he was a big economic tinkerer, big central planner, and FDR ran on a small government, lower taxes platform to get rid of Herbert Hoover's stuff, his bad policy, and then as soon as FDR won, he immediately, within about less than 100 days, basically, because remember, there was like the first 100 days and the New Deal and stuff, he basically, a lot of those plans were doubling or tripling everything Herbert Hoover did. Okay? Go back and read the history. Not making this stuff up. It's the generalist history books, and I was a history major. A lot of stuff I was taught in history was incorrect. So stock futures are down, I think, over 400 points on news of this trade deal. And this is something, remember, Kyle Bass, remember I did a live stream show on this a couple months ago. Kyle Bass wrote an op-ed for free on Bloomberg, and he said that he was shocked that Trump didn't start raising the tariffs again, because remember, Trump was supposed to raise the tariffs to 25% on March 1st, and he didn't. And the Chinese view that as weakness, that they can get away with stuff. So Trump now is starting to follow through on the stuff he said. I'm not in favor of tariffs, but I'm saying these raising of tariffs will hurt the Chinese a lot. And then, of course, for China's bad economy, then they can blame things even more on Trump. It's tough to say what's going to happen to gold. It's tough to say what's going to happen to gold. It's tough to say what's going to happen to the dollar based on these news. But Trump is attempting to get the Chinese to agree to the intellectual property stuff. But the problem, and I've said this for many, many years now, is that the Chinese will only agree on a trade agreement in name only. It's just too profitable for Chinese corporations to do corporate espionage and hacking and IP theft and steal research and development for free. Yeah, the Dow futures are down 400 points or more. So the market is worried. But you know what's funny is that Trump and Larry Kudlow and the lackeys have been telling us that there was this progress in the trade deals for almost 12 months now, every day, Monday through Friday. So whenever the stock market was open, we would get a Trump tweet or a Larry Kudlow interview on TV with progress on the trade deal, or Steve Mnuchin. This is not going to be a long live stream show. I'm going to shut this down in a couple minutes. But I just wanted to get this out there for an update on you guys, to understand that Trump is finally raising tariffs. A lot of people who were in the know thought he should have done this a while ago. Kyle Bass was prescribing this months ago. And I think Kyle Bass is very close now to Bannon, even though he doesn't like most of Trump's policies. But Kyle Bass is an American, and he wants the U.S.'s jobs and economy protected versus China. And he said, you will never have free trade with China. So he's been advocating for higher and higher tariffs on Chinese goods for a long time. Do I think there could be another correction before they decide to lower interest rates? Yeah, maybe. But you would set up, if you're a trader, you would set up volatility trades. So betting one direction or another is bad. Like I've tried to stress for a while now, that the people in power are terrified of maybe that temporarily they may allow asset prices to fall, but it's all about higher real estate prices, higher stock prices, higher bond prices for capital gains tax. And for real estate, in addition to capital gains tax, these local and state governments get to really add on the property taxes. So if you speak to your local politicians, if you actually had them speaking to you honestly, their solution, unfortunately, to almost everything is, oh, we're just going to increase taxes, we're going to layer on new taxes, we're going to raise property taxes in a lot of cases. So even if there is a stock market crash, your property taxes will probably still go up, depending upon where you live in the United States. Especially if you live in a main Democrat state like California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, etc., Michigan. It's the new normal, and it freaking sucks. T. Waters says China will not bow down to Trump. Yeah, China can do other stuff, but a lot of China's economy is based on mercantilism and exports, and Kyle Bass has explained that the way China has been cheating this is by the Chinese company moves their goods to Hong Kong and they don't pay an export tax on the goods once it's re-exported out of Hong Kong. And it looks like Kyle Bass has been telling Trump's trade advisors that this is going on. And my guess is that that's going to get closed off too. Yeah, T. Waters, this is right. The U.S. consumer will pay, but this will put more inflation. This fits into my stagflate and lie thesis. that there's going to be more inflation in the supply chain. There's higher costs going up everywhere. Every country's trying to devalue their currency. We're heading towards national, like hyper-nationalism in a lot of countries, and that means a lot of tariffs. A lot of the mistakes, if you read history, a lot of the mistakes in the 1920s and 1930s are being repeated. We have better technology now. We have social media. But a lot of the same mistakes from policy, from central bankers, politicians, bureaucrats, are being repeated from the 1920s and 30s. Okay, guys, well, that's all the update I wanted to provide for today. It's a short show, like I said, but Tariff Man is back, and he is going for it. So I was surprised he took 8 to 12 months off, and he was telling people there was progress in China trade negotiations, and the market going down was obviously calling his bluff, that now they don't believe him. Now that he announced the tariffs are going up, that proves that Trump was lying, and that the updates that Trump was giving us were not true. Now, most people were aware they were not true, but the market was not pricing that in with lower stock prices. Well, ultimately, as these governments start to escalate more things, it could lead to escalated trade wars with retaliatory tariffs and other things. Look what China's doing to Canadian citizens now. How for, I think, wasn't it lower drug charges? Some of these guys got death penalties. There's been a bunch of Canadians put because China doesn't like the trade negotiations for that. So all these countries are starting to threaten each other over economic policies. And this is because the global economy is not growing. The pie is not growing. Everyone's not getting larger slices of a growing pie. This is because the pie is really shrinking, and we have all these countries with tariffs and taxes and currency devaluation and mercantilism and rules changes and all this intervention with manipulating exchange rates, all trying to fight over a declining, shrinking pie and fighting over scraps. So this is what we have now. Okay, guys, well, that's it. I just wanted to do this short video. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you like my little jokingly Tariff Man or old school Superman intro. Okay, bye.